We know the stories, we know what we deal with. But when you're a person of color and you can just get elevated out of that space,
Hmm.
yeah, sure. I mean, life or death and Martians and evil beings and demons are a bit much. And I was like looking for something different, and people always go, "Well, what do you want to do next?" And I'm always like,
Melanin goddess that's before me. Hello. Coming up on another act, I chat with Mike Colter about this new season of Evil, filming in this new normal, and why he looks for universal truths and the roles he says yes to. Mike Colter, welcome back to the show.
"Thanks for having me, Kelly."
Absolutely. Last season we talked about Monsterland and we briefly touched on your role in social distance. And of course, your fans were thrilled to see you during quarantine. And now it feels like everything is inching towards back to normal because of course we
Hmm.
have season 2 of Evil now.
Hmm.
What's that like for you? And I'm assuming that you were filming the second season in the aftermath of this new normal of how we're doing things now.
Yeah, it was sort of weird. I mean, everyone keeps saying last year, referring to last year, and as we all say that, and we have to add another year because last year didn't happen really. We
Yeah.
just sort of, I don't know, we sort of picked up, and then with the filming, we sort of were during the filming, we did it during the lockdown, sort of.
See,
Yeah.
I was going to say we have to talk about David Acosta because
Mhm.
he's complex. I mean, let's let people know who aren't familiar with the background of him or maybe are coming to the
Mhm.
series just now. He is a former journalist who is
Mhm.
studying to be a Catholic priest, and he deals in this world of miracles and demons, and it, like I
Mhm.
said, it gets very complex.
Mhm.
um was that kind of like a key component that had you gravitate towards him in the first place? Because I don't know if we've seen a character like him before.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, for sure. I mean, I was like looking for something different, and people always go, "Well, what do you want to do next?" And I'm always like, "Well, something I haven't done before, and something that's different, and something that I don't necessarily relate to, but I can find some way into the character." Because we're always asked to find something to do something, and there's nothing. I couldn't think of anything more different in terms of like I didn't have a way in.
Mhm.
I had a friend I have a friend whose name is happens to be David. He used to be an actor. We studied together and we went to graduate school, and then he became a minister. He went into that,
Oh.
um, and it's funny. So his name is David, and I look at I've always been a person who studies people and how they do things and why they do things. And I've always studied because I did go to church when I was younger, and I grew up in the church, and I know why people find themselves in church and why people gravitate towards religion, and I see its purpose. So for David, I could understand David, and by understanding David, I could then find a way into playing him. And I think with David, what makes him so complex is that, like you said, he's a journalist, wartime journalist, been abroad, seen the world, also partied hard, did a lot of things, had a lot of fun. Has two parents who are diametrically opposed in terms of like one is this is what they believe in, and this is kind of where they see their life, and this is what they
Yeah.
decided to do with their life. Another parent is sort of like religious and sort of rooted in this, and David sort of has tried both ways now, and now he's fallen into this religious following because he feels like he's going to be lost if he continues the path that he had. He's a very smart person, and so sometimes people consciously make decisions that will are self or about self-preservation.
One thing that we have to talk about is that we've been seeing so much diversity and really diverse representation inside specifically of the sci-fi horror space. It is very scary to me, even though I am very happy for the
Hmm.
creators and for the performers like yourself who
Hmm.
are able to bring these things to life. But we really are in a space that we haven't seen before. I mean, you and I both know the long running joke is that,
Yeah,
the black guy dies very early
that's for it.
in
Yeah,
these things.
yeah,
But here we are in
yeah,
season 2, and David is still alive. Talk
yeah.
to me about the importance of really kind of seeing this integration of diversity into this genre, because it feels very important and it feels very
Hmm.
game changing too.
It there's. I'm glad you brought that up. I was talking to someone about that. There's a couple things happening, and what and it's such a great question because You remember George A. Romero, 1962, the Night of Living Dead black guy,
Hmm.
who was like the protagonist, and he lived to the end. And
Hmm.
then the zombies were dead, the radiation, and he was alive. He was in the house, and they were cleaning up the town, and they shot him. He was looking through the window, and they were like, he didn't make it. And you go, what? And this was such a weird thing, and it was sort of poetic and sort of absurd, and so sort of like apropos at the same time. You go, of course they did that, right?
Yeah.
What I love about this new genre, or this what seems to be happening right now, is that when it comes to this larger sense of humanity, there's really diversity is sort of inherent. We know the stories, we know what we deal with, but when you're a person of color and you can just get elevated out of that space,
Hmm.
yeah, sure. I mean, life or death and Martians and evil beings and demons are a bit much, but when you grow up in a world that is constantly, you feel a little bit repressed, and racist undertones are always around you.
Hmm.
Hey, it's actually a relief in some way. That part is gone.
Yeah.
Now everyone's playing from the same, same set of rules. Everyone's got the same concerns. It's just, are we going to survive, really? And I think that's the stakes have raised in these platforms, in these genres, and these stories that you're talking about. The stakes have raised in such a way that we have to forget about that because it's not so important, and that relieves us of a burden that we have to tell that story.
Do you feel that there's movement or enough movement in that direction right now, especially because so much of
Mm,
last year in Hollywood was spent talking about, changes that we can make or changes that need to be made? Do you feel like some of that's
mm.
starting to happen now that we're seeing more things like that?
I honestly, I don't know, because as much as we talk about it, I think it always lends itself to telling more stories about it. There's no shortage of films and television shows that will still illuminate and make the primary centerpiece, black pain or racism. And even black creators and writers, we still have this experience of life that dictates what we put down on paper. It's very difficult, as you said. So you haven't seen it, you don't know that it exists. Well, if you haven't lived it, it's hard to write it if you haven't experienced it. So it's all that. People talk about, what do you write? You write what you know. People talk about, but with actors, I refuse to act what I know. That's not why I became an actor. I want to act what I've never seen, because
Yeah.
I don't have that. That's what, you know what I mean. Like, because someone else wrote it, now I can just play it. And
Mm.
so, I did a pilot a long time ago. The guy was born in money. The pilot didn't go, but the guy was born with money. I was definitely not born with money. The guy was born with, a driver and private schools. That was not me. Those are the kind of things that I gravitate towards, because it's a challenge to me, and it allows me to do something that I haven't done, because familiarity to me gets really boring. It's really
Mhm.
boring. While it's a safe space for a lot of performers and a lot of people make a great career out of it, it just gets me really in a place of a feeling like I'm not really challenging myself, and I'm not really opening any doors or opening anyone's mind in terms of what they can see or believe. And that's what it is. So as long as there are opportunities, I will try to find them and take them, and hopefully, maybe there'll be more. But I think there's a lot of actors and performers and writers who still don't feel that space is legitimate, because they really feel compelled to tell the stories that are again telling our specific stories. I mean,
Yeah.
the passion for which they tell these stories, I'm not, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not my passion. I will watch those stories, and I would love to partake at times, but I'm really more fascinated by the stories that we are not even thinking about.
And if some of these characters happen to scare the hell out of us in the process, then
Yeah,
job well
then
done, even more.
yeah.
Mike Colter, thank you so much for joining me again. I always love talking to you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Kelly, it's great talking to you too. Good to see you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.